What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel and to another video. Today we're going to be working on the Honda, which means that everything I'm doing will go super smooth and problem free. Not really. So let's talk for a couple minutes about what I'm planning to do. So I'm going to get started by just doing some basic maintenance like fluid changes, oil, transmission fluid, rear diff fluid. All those things are super common on YouTube. You can find lots of videos. So what I might do is just sort of highlight what's different on this car versus a stock car, what you can expect if you had these aftermarket parts to encounter and work through. And then I'll move on to actually replacing a couple of exhaust gaskets in the back, which is a common thing you might need to do if you have the Tanabe medallion catback exhaust. But those are sort of the simple things. After that, we're going to move into some of the more complicated stuff. And here's a look at what I'm talking about. So this is the engine bay for my supercharged S2000. And what I'm out to do, what I'd like to do, is clean this up quite a bit. As you can see here, this area right here is a rat's nest. When I say a rat's nest, you got a lot of stuff hanging out in here. I've got my wiring harness from my AM Infinity all stuffed down inside there. I've actually got where this car used to have cruise control. I've got the cruise control bracket and cable still sitting down inside of there. That module normally lives right here where this catch can setup is, and I was willing to get rid of cruise control in order to have that because I needed that catch can setup when I decided to go supercharged. Anytime you're going boost on an engine, you're going to increase the crankcase pressure. And so you're going to have, one of the things you're going to want to do in the case of this engine, which only vents its crankcase pressure up top, is you increase the size of the holes for these outlets. You run these dash 10 lines down here to a catch can setup. So, but either way, this looks like a rat's nest over here. We're going to try to clean that up quite a bit. Another thing that I've just got hanging out down in here is actually the hydraulic line that originally went to the clutch master cylinder. At some point, I replaced that with a braided line as well, and the hydraulic line is just still hard mounted down in there in the way. So, second will be this side of the engine bay over here. And as you can see here, I've got a battery. I've got some wiring up on top here. I'd really like to eventually try to get rid of this exhaust shield. I know that there's a lot of videos about its importance when you are totally a stock setup. But a lot of what it's meant to protect is these lines plus your battery and your fuse box. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to be moving this battery completely out of the engine bay down into the front portion of the bumper. And then I'm going to be taking this fuse box and using a panel to move it around this way. So that's some of the things I've got in store for today for this video. Here's a look too at the parts that I plan to use to do all this stuff. Like I mentioned a second ago, I've got this panel right here made by Schmuck Build. That's designed to move the fuse panel out of the way. This is Wirewire's ABS module relocation kit. Since I'm going to totally take apart the brakes, I'm going to go ahead and do braided lines as well. And I'm probably going to go ahead and clean up and paint my stock calipers. And then over here, I've got a battery relocation kit in order to move the battery down into the fender. And so you can kind of see the tray that we'll use. And then those are some remote terminals where the terminals are actually going to be mounted more back up in this area right here when I'm done in order to access if I need to charge or do something like that. So that's the plan for this video. And so let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, guys, so one of the first things we'll talk about is these are my JDP side skirts. And as you can see from top to bottom, this is the front, that's the back. And you see the side skirt's got 3 big slots in it right there. Those 3 big slots here, here, and there actually line up down on the bottom of the car with that black guy right there, that one right there, and one towards the back, right there above where the jack stand is. And the challenge is that while the side skirt was made to accommodate those things when it's on the car, what it was not made to accommodate is jack stands themselves. As you can see, the S2000 is made to be held up by jack stands here And down there where that stand is, it's not really designed for you to jack the car up completely with that. It's actually designed for you to jack the car up using its center jack points. Center jack points are going to be right up there in the middle, and then they're going to be the actual differential in the back. But as I was saying before, one of the biggest challenges is that there's no space right here for a jack stand. So if you go to put a jack stand there and then lower the weight of the car onto it, what you'll wind up doing is cracking your carbon fiber. So that's something definitely you want to consider if you're running the JDP Aero kit on your car. Okay guys, we're under the car. One thing I'll talk for just a second about is when you run the Science of Speed supercharger kit, it actually comes with a fitting that goes in the oil pan. And so your supercharger drain just becomes your actual drain point where you're gonna let your oil out. So that's what that looks like. You just yank that fitting off anytime you wanna do an oil change and let it drain out of both the supercharger and out of the oil pan that it normally does. And last in these real simple maintenance things I'm doing here, we'll talk about these 3 gaskets. These are 3 2-inch size gaskets and 1 2 1/4 size gasket made by Vibrant. All the stuff that I've mentioned so far, I'll throw the links in the description so you guys can get these parts if you need them. But if you have the Tanabe medallion exhaust, like I do, one of the most common leak points is where it does the initial split off, which is right there. And then here and there, where it comes back to the mufflers. And you can see on my car right here, actually, you can see a little bit of black exhaust leakage that's come out right there. And plus this is all kind of soaked down where I used a little bit of penetrating oil in it in order to get it off, and then I used some brake cleaner to clean it up. But those are the places where they leak, and you can see where I've put the brand new gaskets in there. So that's something, if you have the Tanabe medallion exhaust, over time you may start to hear some pops and backfires from the backside of the exhaust. This is where it's leaking. You can also, of course, develop leaks further up the pipe, but this is going to be one of the most super common places that you'll find a leak. Next, guys, we're going to be working on the front end of the car, plus the braking system all the way around. So we're going to get started here by removing the entire front half portion of the car, both fenders, the front bumper, and we're going to pull off all the wheels. Just an FYI for anybody who's interested, this is the standard heat exchanger that comes with the Science of Speed supercharger kit. You can see my 2 lines coming over here, going to this electric pump. The other one goes up to the tank. But basically, this pump, as long as the ignition's on, this pump is running, and it's constantly circulating coolant from that tank right up there down to this heat exchanger to pull the heat out of it to make it cooler for the intake. There is an upgraded unit. At some point I may go to that, but I've never been concerned with like the amount of power that this kit's made. It's been plenty for me so far. Now that we got the bumper off, we'll start working on the fenders. Right now we got the front end disassembled. We're gonna go ahead and start removing all the calipers because I'm gonna be cleaning all of them and painting all of them. So I'm also gonna be replacing those lines. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull those off. And I'm just gonna put some cups underneath of where the lines sit so they can drain out slowly. Anytime you're working on rusted fittings, things that haven't been touched in years, you're always gonna wanna soak things down first with some penetrating oil. And then you're going to want to use, especially on the brake fitting itself, you're going to want to use a combo of heat and penetrating oil. First the heat, or first the penetrating oil, let it soak, and then heat, and then penetrating oil in order to cool it down again. It's the combo of those two things that shocks the rust on things off of the threads. I've used about every kind of penetrating oil that there is, and I like this stuff. And I also like PB as well. PB is good for the fact that it's super thick and will sit on there. The other stuff I have here, Torque CB, penetrates extremely well also. Anytime you're dealing with brake line fittings, you're always going to use a flared wrench to make sure it's an exact fit like this, 6 points. Put a little bit of heat on it. Put it back in there with some more penetrating oil. Brush washers on both sides. Got a cup there catching our fluid. So we go ahead and pull our locking tab out of there. We got our brake line. See, that fluid looks horrible. I'm glad I'm doing this job. Get some new lines, new everything, and new fluid. That fluid's all dark and dirty. A little bit of life left. I do already have new pads laying around. So since I've got all the support, I should probably just go ahead and do it. There's our caliper. Clean that up. Give it a little paint job. One thing is for sure is that it was definitely time to do this job. Fluid that starts to look like this. You can't see through it all. Doesn't even have any sort of like translucent properties. Like, it's bad, can really affect your braking performance. So I think I'll put some Motul 600 back in there in its place. To get that cable off, it was kind of a challenge to get that off. And then now I've got the entire caliper off. Still looks pretty good, it's a little crusty. These pads seem to have a little bit more life left in them than the front. But I'm gonna started working on cleaning these up. All right, guys, now that we've got the all my calipers off and I've got them primered, paint, they're drying to go to the next step. I've got all the brake lines off, and all the, down low. There are some other videos out there that show basically the install process or where things go for the Rywire ABS module relocation kit, but what I've not seen is like really in detail, sort of close up, step by step of what's being removed, changed, or the work involved in getting everything apart in order to get to that point. Like one of the best videos is S2K guys, if you guys see that video. And in his video, he's got a car with an engine out of it, and so it's really easy to see with everything so apart where everything goes. But for me, I got a car that that was running a few days ago, and will be running again soon. And so I've got everything else still bunched in here, mixed in with the stuff that I've modified. So what I'm going to try to show is for both the battery relocate kit and the ABS module relocate kit, I'm going to try to show pulling out all the lines, wires, and moving everything around that you have to in order to get those kind of kits installed with this car. The ABS relocation kit's a big one because you're really replacing the entire hardline assemblies for for the front, both front brakes. You're going to pull out, I'm going to pull out the hardline brake lines for both front brakes and then replace them with a line that goes through the firewall and then over to the other side. So I'll show you guys where all that goes and everything else, but also I'm going to be pulling out the hardline from the clutch, and I'm going to be pulling out almost all the wires over on the other side over there where the ABS module is, and seeing what I can't rearrange over there to make it a little neater in that space. So I'm going to get started over here on this side with the the battery, everything else over here. I'll kind of show what I'm doing to take that apart real quick, and then I'll move on to the other side. Alright, so we're into the car, and so I continue on showing all the things going to be disassembled, basically what you want to do. But for me, I'm running the Science of Speed E85 adapter kit, and that uses this mounting bracket that actually connects to your E85 sensor, and it goes over top of the prop valve, or the proportion valve for the brakes. And so for me, that had to come out of the way in order to access the proportion valve, which is this guy right here. And hopefully we can see up in here, at least a little. But that's your proportion valve right there. And you can see that basically these two right here, where the brake comes down from the ABS, where the line comes down, and then they bend and go back into this protective shield alongside the fuel lines on the top too over here. So these two got to come off. Loose. And while we're down here, we're going to go ahead and get this clutch line out of here. This is my
original factory clutch line that I sort of bent up in here out of the way at some point. That's right there. Go. So you guys can see a little better down inside there. See how nasty that. See how nasty that space looked down inside there. See how dirty all that is. All right, so at this point, we've got all of the stock stuff that we're removing pretty much off the car. It was really difficult to get the stock brake lines out of this area right here. Those lines were snaked up underneath the booster around the back. Most of them were held on with like plastic clips like that, so they're very difficult to get out. But I did manage to get them off. I went ahead and removed the factory air pump line that goes into the intake manifold, which attaches here. And then it comes down to a hard line that goes right here. And then it snakes down to where the factory air pump sits. And I went ahead and removed that. And the Science of Speed Supercharger Kit pump that comes with it is made to attach to the bottom of that air pump. And so I'm probably gonna have to go ahead and pull those lines off and let the coolant run out. And then I'm gonna move the pump up to like a higher new mount location and reroute those lines a little bit so they're nice and snug and not too long. But here's a look at sort of the stock parts that I've all pulled off. That's the air pump right there. That's that hard line I was referencing. Some of the electronics to control it. And then you just got a good look at the the stock hard lines there. And you can see how I had to kind of bend them all out of shape to get them out of there. And then of course right there is the actual ABS unit we talked about a few minutes ago. Over here is a look at what's going to replace it. You've got this one really big long line on the right side here that is that will be the front passenger side. And then those four little lines right there is what you use actually to get from the master cylinder down to the inputs on the back of the ABS unit right there on the back. And then the rest of that stuff will be for the connections for the front driver's side, which will come out of this hole right here. And then it'll also be for the connections that go down to the proportioning valve on the bottom. So that's gonna wrap it up for this video as well, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it short. Otherwise, I think the entire process will wind up being like a 2-hour long video. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop this video here, and then I will pick it back up where I am reinstalling all of the new stuff back on the car and getting it running again. So I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Could really use the support. Additionally, like I said, next time I'll be back finishing up this project. Thanks. See you guys next time.